Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again today. I have Alyssa Couture with me. Alyssa specializes in fashion for mind, body, and soul. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Some people might think that fashion is kind of an unusual topic for a show that delves into spirituality, mysticism, and metaphysics. But fashion is one of the ways that we express ourselves.
Exactly. And it's something that is not very known to the mainstream. I think we have been somewhat controlled with some of the media and marketing, fashion marketing, with what clothing should represent and mean to us. And I find that through my research and through the life experience, I've found out that fashion is to us very sacred. And it's something that is our personal expression. And there are deeper meanings to fashion and what fashion can do for us. And during this time, Linda, I find that there is a spiritual awakening happening on planet Earth that we all know about. And part of this spiritual awakening and ascension, I find that fashion is a tool that we can use in order to make it a healing modality, an alternative health remedy, and it can prove to be medicinal for our lives in various ways. And that can be addressed in so many different levels, so many different concepts in relation to the mind, body, and spirit. Speaking on fashion and spirituality, as I grew up in my 20s and early 30s, I found out that my passion for spirituality, living in ashrams and monasteries, and pursuing my spiritual life parallel to my fashion career in retail management, fashion design, fashion merchandising, and fashion journalism, it's sort of kind of paired together because I wanted to bring and merge the two together. And I find that it is already practiced. It is already practiced in our daily lives. It's already consciously or unconsciously happening. Our connection, our sacred connection to fashion and what we wear is such an important part of our lives. And I do find specifically and metaphysically speaking, we can bring fashion to new heights, to new levels and opportunities, be it making it almost supernatural. One time I had visited a vortex in Mount Shasta, California, and I've visited several vortexes specifically around the west coast of the US. But this specific vortex in Mount Shasta, I was really drawn to. And it was my third or fourth time visiting Mount Shasta when some of my spiritual experiences occurred. And right after my time and spiritual moments that had occurred with the mountain, I began to realize that this book that I wrote in my work, Healthy Fashion Campaign, is sort of guided, is spiritually guided. It's not just coming from me and my thoughts and my passion for fashion. It is actually coming from other ascended masters in the angelic realms and the ancient gurus and swamis and priests and priestesses and extraterrestrials, all of these types of light beings in other realms, I think, are also game for this new possibility of bringing fashion and the new age together. And it may take some time in order for it to develop and process on this earth, but because it's a golden age and we're nearing end times, and this is a sort of a very strong time of spiritual battles on earth. What we're doing here is we're trying to anchor in and bring in the new light energy and make fashion a true tool for healing and a true purpose of being connected with the divine, fashion and divinity together in combination.
Wow, Lissa, there is a lot in there to unpack. And the idea of using fashion as a healing modality or deep spiritual connection is fascinating for me. You know, I see trends and what's popular and what isn't popular, and it does seem to be a little bit manipulated by industry and the economy. And yet, each and every person will put on a garment and it feels good to them in some way that is not just about the fabric or the fit. It just feels natural and like they feel good wearing it. So I think that's probably the rabbit hole with which we can start to use fashion to express our spirituality.
I find that too. When you go into a store, the clothing becomes yours. It becomes like a treasure that you find, and it is an individual, unique remedy for oneself. And a lot of the mainstream fashion, I do applaud, because what they're doing is they're creating a collective unity. They're creating, it's not just about the trends, it's about the collective energy, and we're being brought together in the name of fashion. So I find that mass fashion is really important in that way, because we have this universal language that we are speaking in the name of fashion. It doesn't just become trends, it becomes a harmonization. It becomes sort of like we're apart and together in the name of fashion. But yet again, when we put the garment on, it becomes our own. And, you know, whether someone wears it, the same thing that you're wearing, it's completely different. It becomes special, and it becomes a way to connect with ourselves and our inner being, and acknowledge that our I am presence and our communion with ourself is kind of a godly thing. So when I talk about fashion in spirituality or galactic fashion, I also find that when we connect with the fashion industry and we realize that we could be a part of something, as much as light codes and symbols on fashion that could administer and do a energy transfer and transmission. So our fashion is talking in ways to each other and to ourselves, and it's addressed in metaphysics and symbolism, and where we can find with the star system, the galactic star system. I know that there is light codes on this planet Earth. There's the Lumerian technology called the light codes, and different ETs have embraced this ancient healing technique. And what we could really do, I believe, and is a part of the future of fashion, is bringing light codes to fashion. And it could be as simple as a color. It could be as simple as a texture or a design symbol, a decoration, a silhouette, or a cut of the garment that could really transfer energy in many ways that we may not even know at this time or acknowledge.
Don't you think that clothing already does that it already connects us to the morphogenic field of whatever garment we're wearing?
Absolutely. Yes, I think it's certainly already happening and practicing. However, we're not always actively conscious about it. I do believe the planet needs to become more focused and direct with our deeper connections to fashion. It's similar to eating junk food versus eating whole foods. You know, when you're in that frequency of eating junk foods, you're not connected completely because it's throwing off your energy system. And a lot of the mainstream fashion has sacrificial fashion, egotistical fashion, fashion that's not really comforting us, fashion that's not completing us and making us feel good and ergonomically designed fashion that can really embrace us in more ways than they are today. This is an ancient technique and ancient knowledge, our connection with fashion. But we have sort of been, I wouldn't say mind controlled, but we've been brainwashed a little bit from society and programming and what we see for fashion. And many people are stuck in careers where they have to dress up and they have to play the part, and they need to dress in a way that may not be the best for them. It may be for other people. So I think that we're at a time now, and I think with this COVID, we're sort of dressing more comfortably. We're dressing more for ourselves. And I think it brought a new launch with the athleisure trend and minimalism, because many times we find that athleisure and minimal wear can increase and support the mood and the body for wellness and balance and healing and just overall health.
For a long time, and in many ways, we've become unconscious about the energetics that are underneath the obvious. What you're talking about, Alyssa, really reminds me of a priest who will put a garb on, or a celebrity who's doing a show and they have specific garments or costumes, uniforms, whatever. All of these things, it carry almost like an archetype that when we put them on, we can step into that energy of spirituality, of fame, of authority, whatever garment we're putting on. And I think we could probably do that with our own clothing. You know, if we had a specific shawl or sweater, and that's what we meditated in, or that's what we painted in, then we're building that morphogenic field of whatever garment we're wearing.
Many of us are stuck in the stereotypes because of fashion marketing. We look at fashion as sort of addressing the stereotypes of fashion, be it the jock, the homeless person, the cheerleader, the clown, the hippie. But what we can go further is choose to, instead of looking at an athlete and seeing his athletic wear, we can call him the hero, the adventurer, because when we look at clothes more deeply and we see the deeper meaning behind fashion, instead of being stuck in that realm of sort of perceiving fashion in a superficial and even shallow way, we can find that we are empowering ourselves by honoring and respecting that person and what they're choosing to wear. And we're also being poetic and artistic and just simply healthier by perceiving fashion in a respectful and honorable way. And when we choose to wear these pieces and garments, be it a robe that a priest or a swami or guru wears, it is a sacred blessing and an act. And what they're choosing to wear is truly benefiting society. And I do believe there is something to be said about what you talked about. People can have certain special garments and they can be placed into a sense of magic. These garments can bring them into a state of deeper consciousness, because everything is really made up of energy. So we're dealing also with an energy battle here, because we have a lot of, the synthetic polyesters with toxic chemicals versus the more higher vibed cottons and linens and hemp and rami and tencel and bamboo, all these beautiful plant-based fabrics that we have a connection with, because when we go out in the forest and the woods and we are surrounded by plants, we're going to be sort of transported. We're going to be feeling the energy of these plants, and we're going to become whole and healthy and really tune in and feel better just with plants alone. So I think truly, even metaphysically speaking, plants have a consciousness and a vibration and energy, even down to the cellulose of the plant. When it's broken down, it still attains that high vibration. So when we wear plants, it's truly a magical thing.
How would you counsel people to become more conscious of their fashion and to actually start using their fashion as a way of healing and expressing from a soul level?
That's a great question. I think we can start with everyone has their own process and phase. I remember a time when I would hoard fashion and I had a really bulky closet full of clothing and I only wore about 10% of it. And 10% of that closet was comfortable clothing. So I would start with wearing the most comfortable clothing you own possible. And also playing with silhouettes, and it really gets down to the cut of the garment. I find sometimes I'm in a terribly bad mood if there's a simple cut adjustment that needs to be placed, whether it be a collar or a cuff on the sleeve or a hem. If something is off, it really can throw me off. So I would definitely pay attention to the details. If something doesn't feel flattering, I'm not talking about you have to look attractive, but you have to feel attractive. You have to feel comfortable. And really, attractivity is comfort. So if you have the comfort and ease and you see something that's energetically aligned on you, you just wear more of it. And I would also pay attention to labels. My predominant fibers of choice would be cotton, linen, hemp, rami, bamboo, tencel, and the list goes on. And I've actually provided in my book 36 different types of plants we can use to produce fashion textiles. And this is sort of an experimentation phase, and it's being done slowly in the fashion manufacturing industry. But really, in order to attempt to become 100% plant-based, we have to wear clothes beyond cotton and linen. We have to bring in more plants into the wardrobe. So I would definitely identify with the cuts of the garment, and I would definitely identify with the colors, what attracts you, because we all know our colors. And I think we can speak on behalf of our aura and our energy body and maybe our past lives. We're just connected to certain colors, and certain colors bring us joy and healing and remedy. And they are a part of our soul essence, colors and color healing. And it doesn't really matter what color you wear. You can wear a color that you don't like, it would still provide healing. But most importantly, I think you would be drawn to colors that soothe your soul, soothe you, and make you feel comfortable and confident and just generally functioning well. Color can bring a lot into our life, especially texture and pattern as well. So, with all that being said, I think that it really doesn't matter how much clothes you own, but you will find when you master your wardrobe, you will own less and less because you will want to wear the most sacred pieces possible. And perhaps you would have 30, 40, 50 sacred pieces. But for me personally, I have about 2 weeks of clothing, and it gives me that deeper connection with fashion because when I can wear it more and more often, I find that I can just have a relationship with my clothing on a deeper level.
And aside from comfort, if you're wearing something that brings you out of alignment, there could be other consequences besides just comfort.
Exactly. And I would go to also say that we have to seal our light force within our body and seal it in because oftentimes through trauma, and I've had this happen to myself, through trauma, stress, anxiety, different types of ailments, the aura protects us, but the clothing can protect us and seal the light force within our body. So when we choose clothing that is kind of protecting the light force and sealing it, just like a temple would. When you go to visit a church or a temple, the light stays within the temple. It's cultivated. There is something to be said when you put on a piece of clothing and you find that it is doing something to your energy body. It's triggering something. It's cultivating and harvesting warmth and prana, and it's healing the meridians on the energetic level, not just based on comfort, but healing wounds and injury and possible organ issues or blood or whatnot. All of these things that are occurring in our body, fashion is almost like a band-aid. It's like, I wouldn't, I wouldn't go that far, but it's like a covering, and we're covering this body that needs nourishing. So we can do that with fashion, and we can go as far as to say that there is evil fashion out there. There is fashion that's tampered and toxic. And from time to time, you may find when you weed out clothing, over time, you might find that piece that you really want to throw out might not have been benefiting you completely.
When I took my Ewan method training, it was a healing modality that I studied a number of years ago. And there was a woman there who had a beautiful top on with a lovely mandala. And the instructor brought her up, muscle tested her, and she had zero energy. He told her that it was because this top she was wearing was triggering some past life memories unconsciously and triggering some patterns of behavior for her that wasn't supporting her. So it's not necessarily that a garment is beautiful or a garment you don't like. There is something underneath in the energy structure of it.
I absolutely love hearing stories like that. And I've thought about that before. And I'm so glad that that instructor was able to pick up on that. I find that to be amazing. And I think that with this whole healing and fashion, that's going to be brought about a lot more in the future. These triggers that we have with clothing, and especially with it being triggered by a past life, I find that very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, the world is so much more than what we perceive with our eyes. Now, Alyssa, you had mentioned earlier on in our conversation, you used the term galactic fashion. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yes. So I find that through design and construction, we can really transport our clothing into new dimensions, and we can wear clothing that connects us to multi-universes. Galactic fashion is more than just wearing like space age fashion. It connects us, it sort of transports us, and is used like a channel. So in my research, and basically my spirit guides has also made me pick up on this, is that futuristic fashion really is going to be a way of transport and a channel, a way for us to be walking portals, help us to bring in that new light energy within the energy grid lines and the ley lines, and have that connection be very deep and strong. And how can this be? I mean, what can we do? Well, it's about the materials, the different sacred geometric jewelry pieces, the crystals. It can be the types of materials we choose. And I would almost go on to say that, for instance, seaweed is like a supernatural material. It's almost liquefying. It has a meditational liquefying state. And when you look at it, you visually get into a sort of a trance. And that is what I think is going to happen with the future of fashion. We're going to be using materials like seaweed, turn them into fibers, but bring the essence of the material, the source of it, like it being in that liquefying state. And when we see it and visualize it and wear it and see it on other people, it's going to transport us. It's going to be a healing conductor and modality. So that's one thing that I think is a part of galactic fashion. We're going to be stepping into a fashion experience. And like I said, we do carry this and have this happening to us. But when we become actively conscious of it, when we market it and produce clothing with high dimensions and connected to our higher self in mind, I think we're going to be able to come up with something very magical.
It's fascinating. You certainly have me thinking about fashion in a different way, Alyssa.
Oh, thank you. I'm very glad to hear that.
Alyssa, how would people connect with you if they'd like to know more?
I do specialize in fashion for the mind, body, and spirit, and I do have a new release book out called Healthy Fashion, The Deeper Truths. And you can also find me at my website, www.h as in healthy, f as in fashion, campaign.com.
Perfect. Thank you again for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Linda.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcast, on Spotify. Remember to hit the subscribe button, share with your friends. Come and visit me at thoughtchange.com to learn what energy medicine can do for you. While you're there, check out my group, Alchemy from the Inside Out. Maybe it's time to bring a little magic into your life. That's it for this week. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.